Welcome to a demonstration of the PICSI software. This is a quick background. We're based off WHO Intox. We're browser-based. There's no software needed to be installed. It's designed primarily for poison information centers, but it is useful for other clinical research settings like toxicologist services, etc. We're very focused on privacy. We use encryption and other means to protect that data. So a quick walkthrough. Just logging in. This is your opening screen. This is of course a demo site. You can see a number of open cases on the left-hand side, and this is one of the cases. It gives you a rundown of everything that's been recorded about the case. And then we have the case history. This records every interaction that people have with the file. So with a Poisons Information Centre, there may be multiple calls. With an emergency department, there may be multiple people that enter data about a poisoning. It records every one of them. It's not possible to delete data, except for very small cases. So this is the information about the substances that have been that are involved. You can see the quantity, the route, the type of ingestion, and the split between caller substance and centre substance. Caller is the brand name. Centre substance is the specific type of substance from a clinical setting, and you can look at the toxicology on it. For this case, we've just searched in Wikitox, but you've got Poisindex, toxins, and others that you can use. We've got some options for the cases. In this case, delete file is only available to an administrator. And it's not actually a delete, it just gets marked as deleted and hidden. We can change it, the type of case, from a case to an inquiry or a hoax or something else. And we can also print them. So printing this can print to a real printer, or it can print to PDF. And it gives it in a WHO standard medical record format. Now this can potentially be exported using HL7 or FIRE as a document into the medical record. However, it would require a valid patient matching, which in some health services means that you can't do it without being a health information manager or someone. So as an example for a new record, so we could either add a follow-up to an existing record, or we could go and create a brand new record. And obviously as a follow-up we could search by various means. So normally we'd add some kind of topic. Topic's just a free text field to give you some kind of pointer about what the case is about. We're adding caller name, a phone number. The location currently uses Google Maps to look up places. And that's not too bad in Jamaica. It does lack pieces of information, and we are thinking of switching over to a different mapping system for to cope with that. So, and then we've got the type of caller. Can be various types, obviously there: family member, health personnel, other people. Patient name, we can click that box and take it straight from the caller in the case of where someone's reporting themselves as being poisoned. We can also deal with animals if your Poison Information Centre deals with that. The age can be years or months, and the weight is always in kilos. Circumstance is the known circumstance of the poisoning. Can be intentional, unintentional, or adverse reactions, or others. In this case, we'll pick an adverse reaction. I also skipped there the exposure locality, which if known you can record that too. Clinical features, you can select any number of clinical features depending on what's being presented. You can scroll through the entire list. You can see there's quite a lot, or you can search by category, so respiratory in this case, or cardio. That will give you a list of just those type of symptoms, or we can just start typing directly in and it will search that and give you a shorter list to pick from. So we'll just pick one. Call a substance, in this case we're just going to call it stuff. We'll say that there was 2 litres of it. You can see there's various units we can use. Time since exposure. The reason we pick time since exposure instead of an actual time of exposure is that in our experience so far, most people know how long ago it happened, but they don't necessarily know when. So we calculate the time of exposure instead. We can have different types of exposure: acute, chronic, acute or necrotic. Acute staggered is generally for suicide cases where people have taken some, found that they're not dead yet, taken some more, then taken some more, so that at least gives an indicator that not everything was taken at the same time. For notes, this can be recorded on any tab, and this is just free text, whatever you want to write in there. We can also attach things, so in the case of images or scans that you have available, these can be added as well to the notes. So just closing that notes. So you can see what's happening here. And so substances now, you can see stuff 1 has appeared as a tab there. We can then record additional information about that, type of categories, use types, intended uses, so sometimes they're different. We can also mark this as the patient's own medication, and then we can add a center substance in the case of a caller substance being a general brand name. We might want to say instead of Panadol, we might say paracetamol. Or in this case, we're going to say methanol. And then just the quantity is your normal. So we're going to say he ingested 2 litres worth. So now if we go back to the summary, we can see there's a center substance breakdown and a caller substance. And we can search 2 ways. So that first link takes us to InChem, which may or may not be useful, but it's available. It also gives you a breakdown of dosage by kilo, which is not always useful for obviously a litres, but if it's by a weight, it can be useful. We can right-click on one of those and we can update the case. That will automatically open the case, open a record for us, a new record, and we can update information. So you can see we could update some information about a new caller if we've got a second call, and that will give us some information there, and obviously the state and country because it's in Jamaica at the moment. And that will also hand out the main phone if Google knows about it, which may or may not be useful, but it's available. And since we didn't put the location of exposure in at that time, we'll do it now. Oh, sorry. No, what we'll do is we'll add a hospital MRN. So that becomes useful if it's an admitted patient, because then at least you've got a lookup for it. We can record clinical features that are given to us about things that happened before the call as well as at the end of the case. That can be useful. So if we're adding investigations, these are all just free text. Once we add an investigation request, we can then go and insert a result. Potentially, this can be integrated with a hospital information system, but again, we probably have to do a fair bit of testing to make sure that it is doing it in the right format. And treatments recommended. First off, we got dispositions that we can record, and we can record various treatments. We can find them in a similar manner to clinical features. So in this case, we'll just recommend dilution and maybe intubation, because 2 litres of methanol is a fair lot. And we'll recommend that that's managed at the hospital. And so we'll record a recommended treatment. And you can see we've got a timestamp of when it was recorded and the information about it. And we can also refer to a specialist. So we can have a lookup list here of specialists, and it depends on how the health service is configured. In some places, the toxicologists are part of a different health service, so would appear as a different site compared to the Poisons Information Centre. We can create templates, which are basically a template of a common situation. So maybe in this case, we're going to do a Tide Pods template. And basically, it's the same as recording a normal case, except that it's a template, so we can use it multiple times afterwards. And we can record pretty much anything about the case, and those will then get automatically populated when we use the macro. So Tide Pods will just say, we've got some tachycardia and maybe we'll say some drowsiness. Basically, all symptoms to do with respiratory failure we'll put in, and we'll record some Tide Pods, but we won't say how much because we don't know, so we'll just record that, and that it's an acute ingestion. So if we save that template, we can see pods. And now if we go back to the calls and we create a new call, and we use the macro for pods, you can see it's then populated the bits of information that we recorded for that template automatically in there. Now that's useful for a busy Poison Information Centre because it then reduces the amount of time required to actually go and enter data. And because we haven't recorded a caller or a patient, it's saying that unless we do that, it will remove it out of the record. So other features we got there. So we have a dashboard. This gives information about operational things. So number of calls in the last day, calls by month, calls by day of the week, calls by year, and we would have calls by state. That was just put up for an Australian PIC. Obviously, in other areas, we could break that down by other regions. And clearly, there hasn't been many calls in this case. So analytics gives us basically the ability to query anything that we have recorded. Now you can't query patient names, caller names, caller phone numbers, things like that. But what we're going to do here is we're going to query the number of notes that have been made in the last week by myself. So you can see there we've said note contents. We've added a condition of time span in the last week, and we've said show me. In this case, we've just been lazy, and we've said show me all the queries where the username starts with Brett. And you can see there the actual query shows up in the corner. We'll probably take that away sooner or later. And you can also see that I haven't recorded any notes that are visible. You can also export that to Excel. And that's basically it. We can do quite complex queries in there, but we won't demonstrate that in this one.